I'm on event. Let's get started. Good morning, everyone. Welcome back from your holiday weekend. We will begin started here in just a moment. Jen.
Are you guys able to see me?
The Bill Carigan, can't hear you. Okay. Let's see. Okay. So I know we got a short period and we've got a lot to cover today. So let's go ahead and get started. So my name is Doug Goodwin. I am the Vice President of Strategic Partnerships with Ulimi. Ulimi is a company that makes smart software for engagement with both employees and customers. We're located in Covington, Kentucky, and you can learn more about us at ulimidoes.com. Today we have some very timely guests. We have Promark is with us today. We have Bill Carigan and Bill Harmon, and we are going to be discussing really with the return, getting back to work, but the three stages of where we're at as you bring employees back. And I know we've got some in-depth detail and information on that. So I'd like to welcome our guests. First, I'd like to welcome Bill Carigan. Bill, can you just say something? Because before I couldn't hear you.
Good morning, Doug. Can you hear me now?
Wonderful. So Bill Carigan is the market president for Promark. And he's going to do a little bit of a brief introduction here. And then we're going to turn things over to Bill Harmon, who's the CEO and managing partner at Promark. And he's going to go into some depth about do's and don'ts and what we should be doing as we bring people back into the workplace. So, Bill Carigan, I'm going to turn it over to you for a moment.
Very good. Doug, thanks at Ulimi for inviting us today. You're right. It is a very timely topic. Before we get into how we engage employees during such an interesting, difficult time, I'd just like to give a short description of our business, since many of you are probably new or just learning about Promark. But we're actually in our 52nd year of business, and we consider ourselves the quality leader in the areas of outplacement, career transition, leadership development, executive coaching, and team acceleration. And basically, when you think about Promark, you think about how do you manage your talent throughout the employee life cycle. So we're involved with our clients in effectively onboarding people, training and developing those people, and to improve areas of emotional intelligence and communication with one another. We provide executive coaching, both for high potentials and for people that may have a blind spot in their leadership toolkit, something that others may not see. So we can help those people become better leaders. And then, unfortunately, if eliminations need to occur, we're fortunate in that we're able to help them transition from company A to company B very effectively. So about Promark, think about developing your talent. And if you do need to eliminate positions, we will help you protect your brand as an employer by giving those people a highly effective, high-touch career transition.
That's outstanding. With 52 years, I have to believe that you guys have learned quite a bit over the years and really how to help people out. So for the folk website in the chat room, so go ahead and grab that and learn more from there. So Bill Carigan, I got to keep saying you guys' last names. What areas of what geographic areas do you guys cover? Are you national, international? What territories do you guys cover?
We are global through our affiliation with Career Partners International. So we can provide coaching, leadership development, and outplacement services globally through over 300 offices. Promark is an affiliate of Career Partners International, and we operate in Pittsburgh or Western Pennsylvania, West Virginia, Ohio, as far as Columbus, Dayton, Cincinnati, and the entire state of Kentucky. So locally, you will be doing business with Promark, but globally, we refer business out to our partner affiliates via Career Partners International.
Excellent. So most of the people that come on this show are kind of Ohio, basically territory that Promark covers. So Ohio, Kentucky, and Western PA and West Virginia. So that's excellent. So this is very useful for all of them as well. Is there anything else that the group should know? I mean, I put the website on there. Can they reach out to you guys via LinkedIn? Is that okay if people want to learn more?
Yeah. Yes. And we'll give you a phone number for Promark, which is area code 513-768-6500. And I will put that in the chat.
Excellent.
I will also put my email address and Bill Harmon's email address in the chat. The only other thing that I have not mentioned, but I'm sure Bill Harmon, Promark, is if you think about all things humans, pick up the phone, and if it's not within our core competencies, we will get you to a strategic partner that can help you. So if you have HR issues from hiring to letting people go, everything in between, pick up the phone, call Promark, and Bill and I are committed. If we can do it ourselves.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you so much, Bill Carigan. We really appreciate it. So I think we can now shift over to Bill Harmon. So, Bill, welcome to Breaking Through the Noise. And I did want to just kind of go over real quick. So Breaking Through the Noise, for anybody who's new this week, this is a weekly show put on by ulimidoes.com. We really are focused on sharing ideas. So please put your questions in the chat room as Bill's going through his presentation. And we will have a great kind of jump in and introduce yourself a little bit.
All right, Doug, thanks a lot. I'm getting a little buffering on this
So,
end.
Bill Harmon, can you hear me?
Yes, can you hear me now? Love that phrase.
Yeah, I'm hearing just fine, actually. Yeah.
Getting a little buffering, so perhaps the internet is having a post-holiday weekend vacation.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen. I think that's what you wanted me to do, correct?
Yes.
All
correct.
right, and get it over to. Hold on here.
Take your time.
No problem. Getting kind of a fun little warning here. There we go. All right. Can you see my screen now?
Not yet, but the buffering may be taking us a little bit of time. So, and I was getting some when Bill Carigan was talking to myself, and I see some other folks in the chat room are as well. So, did you click the turn your screen share button on? I'm assuming.
I did, and let's try a different one here. And it is fighting me, my friend. So I won't allow this. There we go. Try one more time here.
Okay, and if that doesn't work, I'll share it from my screen, and you can just tell me when to. No, not happening.
Not happening on this end. It's a little buffering. So
let me go.
If you want to take over, go ahead.
Yep, I'll share my screen. Let me go get your presentation. I'll be right back. There it is. So let's do share the screen. Always more than one way to skin a cat. Okay, my screen is now sharing.
You were saying we were having some buffering earlier today.
Yeah, I was testing it early this morning, and it was going. It was a little kludgy. So, can you see the presentation as of yet?
I can. Since I know it, hopefully we're gonna share it. So, just to let folks know, we've got a total of 14 slides. I'm not gonna spend a lot of time on these. There's some content on ones that, we're not going to talk about every bullet on there, I promise. That's the promise I'll commit to you. But if at any point you want any of this information, or if it benefits you and your organization, you can either reach out to Doug, Bill Carigan, or myself. Be happy to share these with you. As Bill Carigan mentioned, and by the way, not everybody at Promark is the first name of Bill, just to be real clear with everybody. But yeah, as he shared, for 52 years, we have been sharing information, expertise, and working with companies to really help them leverage their talent to the fullest potential. And as that happens, we love doing these. So appreciate the opportunity, Doug. And I'm just going to jump in real quick. All right.
Okay.
So this year, we talked about this business is unusual. Everybody keeps talking about going back to norms and new norms. It's just going to be business as unusual. In many cases, business is about capturing the unusual and moving forward. We were essentially given, not much of an option. We had to get our people out of harm's way. People did that very effectively. There were three stages that we're trying to. And if you think about during this process, not only protecting our businesses, but protecting our employees in that process and having that balancing act. So there were really only three stages that, when we break this whole thing down, if we could keep it simplistically, we had to get people out of harm's way. There wasn't a lot of preparation for that, but we had to get them out of harm's way, whether it was mandated by a government or our own good moral judgment, whichever it was. We got people working in a variety of different ways. A challenge has been keeping them engaged. And when we talk about keeping them engaged, not only just the desire to bring them back or with work for home initiatives and the like, but also keeping them away from others. Right now, it's going to be a field day for those who are hunters looking for talent out there. And then, of course, we have all the nice challenges coming and facing us at different paces right now as we return them back to work. So go ahead, Doug, go to the next one if you'd like. In the harm's way, you saw it all. We had work from home, shutdowns, furloughs, temporary layoffs, and reduction in forces. A lot of phrases people didn't know much about until all this hits, including primarily furlough and temporary layoff. The differences between each and every one of these were quite unique and quite substantial for those who could figure it out. And we saw a lot in the press where people were interchanging the terms on whether or not someone was furloughed or temporarily laid off. Regardless, people were impacted. So go ahead, Bill, or Doug, sorry. And, we saved lives. No matter how you felt about whether there was overreach or whatnot, all right, individuals felt more safe, more just confident that some of this stuff was getting figured out. In recent CDC pronouncements relative to how the virus changes or exchanges, I should say, has been helpful and should help accelerate some return to work issues and with some more confidence. But still, there are challenges ahead. We're going to talk about and kick into stage 2 here real quick. All right. Sorry, Bill, Doug, go back. In stage 1, the first time we got hit with this, we didn't have a lot of time to prepare. Basically had to get people out of harm's way. There is a reality that says we could see, based on different industries, companies, and situations, that we may be repeating stage 1, getting people out of harm's way again, if there's a second flare-up, if any of the other things that come into play do indeed come into play. And so the second time, there's going to be a higher expectation of our preparedness, all right, for what we're going to do. It won't necessarily be do it the way we did it before. There's going to be a lot of lessons learned. And so there is this opportunity for preparation. This is not a one and done cycle. And so we need to have people kind of focused on that fact very quickly, that, learn from whatever lessons went well and whatever ones did not in this first wave of getting people out of harm's way. If indeed there is another flare-up in some capacity impacting business or our supply chains or whatever the case may be, be ready for that. Go back to stage 1, get people out of harm's way. Now I can go on, Doug. Thanks. All right. So now what? And going into stage 2, it's really a very binary issue. All right. We're talking about engagement here. How did you keep people engaged during this time period? How will you keep them engaged, particularly if you have a mix of people, some that have been brought back in different stages and phases, and some that are not brought back yet. And so it comes down to really basics, okay? It's a binary issue. Did you do something of significance to help your impacted employees, or did you simply go through the motions and offer the basics? We're going to talk a little bit about some of those basics in a second. But this is the type of thing our employees, our leaders are going to be measured by. Our employees are going to be measuring us, and it's going to make the determination of their confidence to want to return to the company on how well it took care of them during this process, how well and effective it's been keeping them engaged during it. If they haven't been, All right. In reality, your people are in play. All right. And as a former headhunter, as the phrase goes, executive search, however you want to say it, it's a field day for those who are going to be looking for employees that are feeling a little disenchanted from how their companies handled this process. So let's move on, Doug, to the next one. So the basics, all right, you heard them all right, it's basic business crisis 101 stuff, all right, furloughed everybody part of their time, some people were identified as non-essential, there's an old joke about, putting an announcement out on, all home and people say it is non-essential, never want to be in that category. All kinds of fun stuff from executives taking pay suspensions, freezes, reductions, one-way email communication. These are the basics, folks. This is not state-of-the-art stuff here. This stuff's been around. It's really part of business crisis management 101 communications. And some companies did a really good job with some of these things. Some didn't cover all of them or even some of the basics, and maybe we'll be paying the price for that over time. But what about going beyond the basics? Okay, what is considered going beyond the basics? And that's the component I think a number of people need to be thinking about. So Doug, if you want to move us along to the next one. All right, we got a series of slides of what people have been doing. We've been capturing, in some cases, we've been consulting with a number of companies on these various things. I'm not going to read every one of them. I've highlighted some. There'd be a lot of content here, but basically the bottom line is a lot of stuff is taking place. And use this as a bit of a measuring stick for your organization to determine whether or not you've done these things. Now, again, you might be in the process of bringing people back, but not everybody's coming back. Whether that means you have less of a need for individuals in your organizations, or just you're not phased up production-wise, or you're just, your workplace is not exactly set up for this type of activity coming back quickly. Whatever the reason is, people will be coming back in phases. But one of the things that we have seen that has been really kind of shocking when we transition people, whether it's furlough, not as often, but sometimes in furlough, definitely in temporary layoff, of course, when people are laid off. But in these scenarios, we are seeing a lot of people being cut off because IT protocol and security measures, appropriately so, don't let them have access to the network anymore. So they essentially have been cut off from their work community. They're not a part of any dialogue. Overlay the no work rule provisions that are out there, and it says a lot of organizations, HR types and others, paralyzed on what they think they can and cannot do. I'm not a lawyer. I don't play one on TV, just have some very good ones in my world. And the no work rule, provision is pretty straightforward. If you ask someone to work, do some work, all right, or require it, you got to pay them for it. It's that simple. All right. There's other aspects to it, but that's the primary nuance. But it doesn't mean you can't engage them. Doesn't mean you can't communicate with them, not just at them, but with them. And it doesn't mean you can't invite them to be a part of things, and it doesn't mean you can't invite them to continue to grow professionally. And so there's a host of things in that no work rule that people have drawn too tight of a line on that have really failed an awful lot of companies and individuals that have been furloughed and temporarily laid off. You can see some of the other ones out here. Believe it or not, you can do surveys and polling inquiries with your furloughed and temporarily laid off employees to see how they're doing. You just can't require them, all right, in any way, shape, or form to do, answer the polls. But guess what? People want to stay connected. You can invite them. And through a platform I'll be articulating or showing a little bit with later, which we could talk to people about in more detail, you'll see ways in which you can indeed do polls, inquiries, and work with great companies that do that type of work. You know any, Doug? So we'll leave it at that. But resources to navigate the new realities. People were, if they're just tossed out to the web trying to figure out where to find resources, they're in some serious trouble and a ton of scams that are out there. So your employees really aren't protected by just putting them out there. And Lord, if anybody that ever had to work with any state, and we operate in a whole host of them, but any state's unemployment offices, and I feel for those people that work in those offices because they're just hit by a tidal wave. But try and get someone on the phone. Try to get an answer. Try to get anything whatsoever. That goes about making this, getting answers. And there's just no way for them to get answers to their unemployment offices at this time. companies are actually telling people that they would be making a career transition or outplacement commitment to them if for some reason they weren't able to bring them back. And there's a nuanced communication that goes with that provides an element of security, because people are starting to wonder, should I go out and look for another job? I have no idea whether or not my company's bringing back. I'm going to start now. So a lot of that disconnect is beginning to take place. And then, of course, you have to have a secure platform. You got to have a secure area in which you can only give information that no one else has access to. But you've got everybody outside, let's say the old term, your firewalls, outside your networks. And so how do you do that and be effective? Go ahead, Doug, go to the next one real quick. And again, there's others. And what I try to illustrate here, these are all things that are happening as we speak by cutting edge companies across the United States that are in the process of staying engaged with their people, going beyond those basics, as I said before. All right, including, stuff like you got all these folks who are impacted by grab parties. Companies have a chance to really reach out to organizations on that. When you've got people on furlough and on temporary layoff, all right, they have some time to be thinking about work. You can invite them, not mandate them, but you can invite them on productivity improvement ideas. Find out who really wants to play, who would like to come back. You just can't make it a requirement in any way. And again, by creating an environment, most HR groups, I'll be honest with you, having come from the field, all right, are paranoid about groups of employees getting together. All right, that's a mistake. All right, but that's kind of a genuine thought, people, that they're going to badmouth the company. They're not. All right, employees have the ability to help employees if you can create the right environment for them to do so. And so we have found that we can help companies create that environment, and going beyond the basics, as I said right now, of some of the things that people have put forward. Go ahead, Doug, go one more. And again, I promise not to read the slides to you, so I'm definitely not going to do it. There are compensation aspects associated with this. You'll see some of the pieces on return to work a little bit later on the unemployment conundrum, where some people are making more money on unemployment than they were when they were working for you. There's ways to mitigate that, and very quickly and very effectively. For those interested, give us a ring. Be happy to talk to you about those. And then essentially a host of things that companies have been doing when they discover that their employees are struggling to a little bit, that do not, despite, and I know we've got some great attorneys probably on this call also, don't let the fear factor keep you from being human, being innovative, and being able to engage your people during this time. All right. That's one of the things that people have gotten a little too caught up in. And basically are missing some opportunities to build some incredible amount of loyalty, even from those who've been temporarily laid off or furloughed. So again, we're, just a host of these pieces. This is what's the master class, as we refer to it, of things that companies are doing. And frankly, the list, and both Doug and Bill were concerned that we're going to have way too many bullets, just keeps going and going and going. And this is what we do. So we're happy to share these things with companies, how they can implement it, how they can make it happen. And so, feel free to reach out to us through Doug, through Bill, through myself. I'd be happy to work with you on that. Doug, if you could go to the next slide, that would be great. Thank you. Appreciate your help. One of those pieces we talked about, and again, not trying to turn this into a commercial. All right, but one of the things that you don't see out there is any kind of platform for employees to be able, that have been furloughed or temporarily laid off, to still engage, and for their companies to also be a part of that outside of their network, firewalls, however you want to say it, cybersecurity protocols, and still be able to be engaged with their employees. So, there are a lot of companies, particularly some of our competitors, that are happy to help you exit people right away, or are laden with a lot of stuff that helps people find other jobs. We designed Pro Navigator and Pro Vault as a platform that creates a community, but does not point people to finding other jobs. It points them to resources for professional development, leadership development, even resources that they cannot get through their unemployment groups and the others, and creates this community that allows people to stay in contact. And then companies themselves can create, think about it, a private vault that only their information goes into, and they and only invite certain individuals to be able to have access to it. So, not, be their furloughed employees, their CEOs have been engaged in this in some cases, and it allows for communication, dialogue, and that camaraderie and connection to stay in the engagement process, as well as all the polling and everything else. One of the things I learned a long time ago playing collegiate level sports was that even when you weren't starting, which was very difficult to me because I'd been a starter throughout my high school, but sitting on the bench my freshman year was not a pleasant experience. And that's what a lot of these employees feel like. They've been put on the bench. And some coach isn't bothering to grow them or share ideas with them, is only focused on starters. Well, successful teams learn to engage their bench as well as those that are in the game. All right, that's the element. So you've got a host of folks that are on the bench right now, if they're furloughed or temporarily laid off, that can still be contributing to your organization. You can still collaborate with, not violate any no work rule provisions or laws. All right, and most importantly, have them queued up, ready to go when you're ready to go, and bringing people back. And a lot of folks have thought email was the only way in which they could do that. That's one way of communication. Frankly, it's communicating at people. It's not communicating with. We created a platform that really defines more of the communication with. So go ahead, Doug, real quick. I'm going to try and get us right in here within the timeline we said. And so really the last stage, we're all kind of starting to come into it, some paces faster than others. The return to work, stage 3. We've seen a host of this. There's going to be some waves and phased approaches, people coming back at different times. We have a client that has served the medical community as well as aerospace. Well, guess which one is going to come back faster than the other? All right. But it makes no sense for them to go out and hire more people to support the medical side of the business. Why don't they expose their workers on aerospace side to what's happening on the medical side? They already understand the culture. They already understand. And that's the kind of thinking that really leaders should expect, either from other leaders, their HR groups. That's the innovative approaches that you see here as we talk about cross-training or making people aware of other things that are happening in the company. The governments of various states and even at the federal level are going to mandate a number of things we'll all have to navigate through, and we get that. We try to work with employers on that might not have resources to assist them. We can help make that happen. This unemployment conundrum, as we talked about, individuals getting an additional $600 a week on top of their unemployment, making more money. We have strategies and things that we have implemented already to help clients in that situation that gets their people coming back and not with a gun pointed to their head that they'll lose their unemployment if they say no. There are better ways, and we can help people through that process. And then there's just a reality that's going to take place. Bill mentioned it. Companies are going to re-examine their talent that they have. They're going to be taking a look at what's available in the market. In some cases, it was considered okay to have someone that was 80% ready for the job, which was better than 0% if you couldn't find anybody. Well, now the talent world is going to be opening up. There's going to be a lot of people very aggressive out there. You're going to see realignment. And ultimately, there's also going to be some outplacement that takes place. And this isn't temporarily saying goodbye to people. This is permanently saying goodbye to people. We know the importance of being able to do that right. We've been involved with that for 52 years, helping companies. It's not just about, the humane exit of individuals, but it's also for those left behind and the confidence they have in their leaders on whether or not they really do care about them and whether or not they do view them as their top asset in the organization. And so Promark has been the best at that for a long time. And we say that not with bravado, but just because of the commitment of the individuals and experience we have in helping people. So the last piece that comes about is this Wild West that's about ready to take place, okay? And I will thank him in a second, Doug, but the Wild West is going to take place when it comes to hunting talent. If your HR group is unable to hunt, and I'm not talking about just posting and praying people will respond and those kind of things, if they do not have the capability to hunt down talent from your competitors, hunt down talent from the general market, we can help you get in contact with those that can help you get that talent you're looking for. Back to the point Bill said, even if we don't do it ourselves, we probably know someone who does, and we'll find a way to help in that regard. So there you go, 29 minutes and 36 seconds with only 22 on mine. There we go. How about that, Doug?
That's wonderful. So let's get everybody back online here. And I know I've got some questions. I'm sure other people do.
Go for it.
So one of the questions I had, and this comes from research that I was reading over the weekend, essentially about high risk lifestyle, and high risk is totally redefined now.
Mhm.
So high risk would be, for instance, somebody who goes to maybe a crowded concert venue or a bar on the weekend. They're much more likely to be infected than someone who goes to a park and rides a bike or takes a jog or whatever, where there's almost zero chance of being infected. Is there any way, and I know you're not an attorney, so is there any way for employers to identify their employees that may be more high risk lifestyle? And like I said, that's the definition I just laid out, which doesn't seem very high risk, but right now it is. Is there any way for people to do that? I mean, because is it an opportunity to say, hey, yeah, you know what, I'm going to go to clubs and stuff on the weekend. I need to work remotely. Is there any way to legally do that? Is really what I'm asking.
Yeah, you're always, there's what's called the gray area. You're always going to flirt, all right, with something that, 1 minute may seem right and righteous and be absolutely totally illegal. Identifying or signaling out any particular group, you get into phrases like disparate impact and things of that nature, and it just becomes a slippery slope. Bottom line is you set the criteria as an employer, all right, for what people can come back to work for, all right? And that keeps changing daily, all right, as more mandates come out and more really guidance from the CDC. So less than 30 days ago, we were all concerned about the transference of a virus from contaminated services. So you heard everything going on from a facilities management perspective on how to sanitize, and every message was going that particular way. And then CDC puts out guidelines last week that basically say that you cannot catch it from a contaminated service. You can only catch it from another human being. So there is the lifestyle elements, and I think it's always dangerous for our organization to be dipping into the personal lifestyles of individuals and the likes, but it's also an educational component throughout this. All right, if individuals understand the risk that they are putting themselves and others into, all right, I think it's absolutely required for companies to be communicating, all right, risk factors, not just the symptoms and not just the protocols they'll have for you to come in, but also to be communicating risk factors in a broad sense, all right, and not in a, hey, Doug, I noticed that you saw on Facebook or Instagram or your Snapchat, whatever social media that you were out clubbing last night. Having a discussion with that is a slippery slope that you should not do on your own without some good advice. Let's just say it that way. All right.
Right. But giving those guidelines and saying, hey, this is a high risk, activity to your employees in advance is probably okay. It sounds like.
Yeah. Yes, you can, without getting too deep into those details.
Right.
You can communicate expectations and not be stepping on any lines. Okay.
Sure.
And at the same time, I heard a phrase, and I'm going to mess it up, I'm sure. Our provisions are only as strong as our highest risk individuals. Okay. So if individuals are out there and they're putting themselves at high risk, they're putting others also. And right. So to your point, how do you communicate? Just a time to chill out right now, and not necessarily, put others at risk in the work environment. And, we have to be very careful about not being punitive either when people do get, COVID or any other illness, that you're being punitive towards them in a job action. You'll just be writing very big checks if you do that. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Let's say it that way. All right.
Yeah, exactly. So, do you see some of the things that we're seeing changing the work from home? Do you see some of these things becoming permanent fixtures? I know we've already seen the tech firms out in Silicon Valley are saying they're going permanent work from home. I'm sure they've done the math. They can figure out the price per square foot is a lot cheaper if it's reduced by 40%.
Yeah.
Do you see those what kind of things do you see becoming of a permanent fixture?
Well, of course, we saw Facebook and some other high-profile ones talk about that. I've got a good friend who heads up cybersecurity for a organization there in Cincinnati, so I won't say his name, but for an organizational side of things, that is daunting and scary. And for those who are in cybersecurity consulting, they're hoping that trend kicks in because it's a massive business, influx for them. In reality, we're not just going to go on the assumption. All right. And there were a lot of assumptions that we started 2020 with. There was assumptions that you had to meet in person, face to face with humans to conduct any type of business. All right. That you had to travel to make business happen, that you had to stay in hotels, that you had to do this, you had to do that. And a lot of those barriers have been broken, including activities such as this. All right. Where you're doing virtual, commonplace. People are going to need to learn how to master, whether they're digital natives, meaning they were brought up in the digital world, or digital immigrants, more like myself, that worked our way into the digital world. And so you're going to see companies not want to, and we've got good clients that are in the commercial real estate area, so I got to be real careful when I say this. They're not going to be wanting to shell out the kind of rent that they were paying before for the large space footprints that they were paying before, when there might be other alternatives that actually fit some lifestyles better. So you may see, I don't know how much of it'll be mandated during the pandemic and whatnot, but I see it as more of an option where working remotely or telecommuting, all that stuff, which was kind of considered out there on the fringe, is going to be a lot more in the mainstream.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. And I think it's sales always leads the way. So if sales can be done with these type of tools, everything else will follow. And I think what we're probably going to find out is, as long as you can see each other, I think that's the key. People, I know 5 years ago, people wouldn't turn their video camera on when like Skype and that kind of stuff started, but now it seems like everybody's willing to. So I think that's the opportunity to kind of propel this work from home. If we can see each other, we can work. Now, obviously buffering issues, maybe it's an opportunity for the country to up our infrastructure, but that's probably beyond this discussion.
Well, we can joke about people ripping down 5G towers and everything else, but in general, I think we're seeing a demand for, let's just say, to your point, better infrastructure, superior infrastructure. Right. So,
excellent.
What else can we help people with today in the time we have left?
Okay, so question, and I apologize, my eyesight is so bad I have to lean forward to read the questions. But how will companies do team building and create team culture if everyone is in a different location? It's actually a really good question.
It is also from one of my favorite people in the world too. Hi, Cheryl, and she's laughing. Go Louisville. But in general, you can, and we've actually been doing that. It's been fun. We have an offering which we've always called Promark Team Accelerator, which did the classic, bring everybody into a room, learn how each other communicate, learn how to work effectively as a team, and most importantly, driving against results that they're trying to accomplish through a team. And the team world is changing. Established teams that run together for long periods of time, as the agile world is moving in. You might be on a team for 6 weeks and then on a completely different autonomous team for another 6 weeks and another 8 weeks on a different team. And so having that agility to be able to navigate the different cultures that might not and won't be in the same physical location. That day of teams always being housed in the same physical location is pretty much over or fading away. The new reality is, I'm going to be working with my partners in California and also in Germany and also in Kuala Lumpur, because they have the expertise to bring forward and work on a team environment. Well, we're not hopping on a jet, to meet in one location, because that gets to be pretty expensive when all of this is available to us. So there will be, in my opinion, a mix where people will need to connect in the classic human, capacity. At the same time, this offers something far superior than email or even just talking on the telephone, because you get to see eye contact, you get to see people leaning forward, people who are working from their homes, people who are trying to master, this technology. And there's a lot of grace right now, but there is going to be an expectation that you can contribute in this type of platform and others. So yeah, the Promark Team Accelerator, we deliver it virtually. We started, to your point, we started with a sales team that needed to really, hit some numbers and really change how they were doing their work. And it's been a raging success. already in the process. And so, again, things that were delivered in a classic fashion, or teams that came together in the classic fashion, is, we're, as I said at the beginning, when business is unusual right now, people are going to be more open to the new way in which we collaborate and accomplish what we need to get done. So
Doug, can I add one thing?
Oh, please.
Bill, that was an excellent answer. I will tell you that one thing that we are learning very quickly is the importance of emotional intelligence and agile EQ, because now more than ever, it's a little tougher to read body language virtually. You can do it. You can see people nodding and smiling and leaning forward, and whether or not they're engaged. But we do a lot of work in the area of helping leaders to improve their emotional agility and communicate with their teams. So if you have someone out there on the webinar today that feels like they can improve in that area, we have some very effective ways to deliver that programming remotely using tools like this.
And Doug, if I could, one of the comments, thanks. So one of the comments Christopher Dixon put in about, looks like staffing is going to become ultra competitive. As strange as it sounds, staffing was incredibly competitive because there was a labor shortage. And now you're hearing about double digits unemployment. It's going to become even more competitive, and only the best and those who have the ability to hunt or have the resources that they're aligned with to be able to hunt for talent are really going to be able to play well in this wild west, as I was referring to it, of recruitment and talent acquisition. Everybody's in play right now, and that's the part where this engagement piece needs to be really critical with those that you furloughed and temporarily laid off that you want back, as well as, of course, the employees that were quote unquote essential and stayed engaged, worked from home. But companies who fail to do this, leaders who fail to really take the lead in this kind of area, are all of a sudden going to find talent that they did not want to leave leaving. And and having the worst nightmare of a senior HR person is when the CEO turns to you and says, "Why is everybody leaving? Why aren't you keeping them in place?" If you give them the deer in the headlights look, you'll be leveraging our outplacement services. All right, because they'll go find someone else who can. All right, it's that cutthroat, and that's how it's going to become. So, Christopher, you're a good point there. It's going to become even more competitive on the staffing and the talent acquisition side, because virtually everybody feels as if they're in play and more open to looking.
Well, and it also sounds like that the role of the recruiter, the skill set that a recruiter or an HR person has, they're going to have to evolve themselves and fairly rapidly, it seems like. Obviously, the hunter that's a unique person, but there's a lot of HR people. They're more administrators. Mm-hmm. It sounds to me like they're going to have to elevate their skill set pretty rapidly.
Yeah, and I'm hoping my buffering doesn't kick in too much here, but and I'm going to date myself. If anybody remembers the movie Top Gun, the original one, I know the new one's supposed to come out, but one of the things they talked about was how U.S. pilots in Vietnam had become dependent upon missiles. They had lost their dogfighting skills. Well, that same analogy applies to most organizations, and to some degree, my brothers and sisters in the HR world. They've lost their ability to dogfight, or they lost their ability to hunt. They've been flying their ATS systems, or applicant tracking systems, and providing great tools. Don't get me wrong, they're great tools, but so were missiles. They were losing skills to be able to cold call a talented individual, even with LinkedIn available to you, how to hunt on LinkedIn. All right, and most organizations don't have a clue on how to do that. And like I said, we're not a search firm. So when I say that, I'm not saying that to drum up business to do search for anybody. We are a firm that helps organizations get better at attracting talent. All right. And we know great search firms, and they're part of our partnership. But Jessica brought up a key piece that, the skill set of HR departments in acquiring talent will change. There'll be a massive culling out of those who aren't able to get it done. And frankly, it's going to become very aggressive when leaders look to you and you don't have answers. That's your nightmare as an HR leader. And we try to help fill in the answers to make sure that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
I'll add one thing to that, and again, an excellent answer, Bill. Networking is more important now than ever, and working on your professional network, because 90% of the great jobs out there are when an employer learns about your unique value proposition and what you bring to the table, and you are top of mind. So even though we can't go out and have a cup of coffee or a beer yet, keep your network strong using tools and technology, because people, when companies are looking for talent, they pick up the phone and they talk to connectors. And Bill Harmon and I spend a lot of time networking in the community, because we want to help other people, but also we like to have an ear to the ground on what's going on, who's coming and who's going, and networking. Keep your networking strong.
So Doug, let me share a fun one. I kind of pseudo reference it in the slides, but we do a lot of work with individuals of all, from manufacturing to C-suite. It really doesn't matter. We are talent agnostic when it comes to career transition. And so one of our individuals is a senior medical affairs officer. All right. So this is a player pulls down about $250,000 a year. And this company is a big pharma, has a product they're trying to launch, and they need to hire in the middle of a pandemic. He never met anybody in person. He never went on a corporate tour. He went on a virtual one, had all virtual Zoom meetings and everything. But most importantly, one of their cultural pieces in the past have been to fly someone in for a corporate visit, do a working lunch together. All right. So see if the individual wears food, I guess, whatever, while they're working, whatever the case may be. But in this case, they did it via Zoom, and they had lunch delivered to his house. They ordered it, delivered it to his house, and still did the virtual interview, working lunch scenario. All right, during that piece. That's that creativity that leaders are looking for from their HR teams, their talent acquisition partners, whatever. And if that's not being delivered, all right, that's back to that whole deer in the headlights thing again. All right, the expectations are higher than ever, and hopefully individuals will, embrace that. They hired the individual. All right, he started last month, right in the middle of all of this, and you just got to have there's a different framework and mindset right now. Business is unusual, as we're saying.
Yeah, it's really interesting. What a unique approach, but yet it proved to be very effective. Just a little creativity.
Yeah, Kurt Wells brings up a good piece in the chat about, working time management, distractions, optimizing performances in these remote settings that we have. The ergonomics of, one of my attorneys pointed out that, she had to have a desk ordered into her house because her and, in this case, her husband were both working from the house, and they only had one desk. That wasn't going to work. So those things are going to become key, and employers are going to have to think about that. Do I pay for desks in people's houses? Do I cross that line? So there's all of those questions to be asked and answered out there.
Well, and especially like the chair.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because when you're sitting at a desk all day, and if your chair is not adequate, I mean, are there possible ramifications with, workers' comp and that kind of stuff just because you didn't supply a chair? We don't know yet, but.
Yeah, there's. We try to keep people. We help them navigate the legalism. Okay, and I'm not trying to be, condescending when I say that. I promise. It's important, but not to be trapped by it. Very important. Not innovation doesn't take place. All right, within frameworks such as that. So innovation and new thinking, can drive, frankly, where the legal realm also goes. You can navigate all this very effectively with a partner, all right, that has the expertise. But there's a lot of organizations that don't, and we're always there to assist whenever we can. Other comments up here, Jessica put in the chat about your network. Bill briefly mentioned it. Less than 80% of any positions that are available out there are ever posted, despite the Indeed, LinkedIn jobs, all the rest. 80% of the positions are still found through networking, still found, not necessarily by who you know, but who you know that might know someone. All right. And those types of things. And those are essential skill sets that all employees that are in transition, all right, when you've let people go, that's the kind of pieces that we train and invest so that they can find. And it is rare that our people are finding things through posting. They go through the motions, don't get me wrong, but they are finding it by networking and getting deeper into companies, and in some cases creating their own roles. And we're going to see that in spades over these next couple of months in particular.
Excellent. Well, gentlemen, this has been a very informative and very lively discussion. So we greatly appreciate you coming on, breaking through the noise. Any final thoughts before we wrap it up?
Go ahead, Bill, and then I'll follow.
Yeah. Well, Doug, first of all, just thank you very much for the opportunity. This has been wonderful. It's great to see people engaged and asking questions. I would just say for anything regarding talent management, pick up the phone and give us a call. Connect with Bill and I on LinkedIn. I did put in the chat my email address. I'll be happy to share our virtual cards with anyone that reaches out to me. But if you have a question about people, give us a call. And like we said earlier, if we can't help you directly, we will connect you with someone who can help you.
Awesome.
Yeah, and again, for over half century, that's exactly how we've conducted business, from our founder, Nancy Shellhouse, to all the subsequent leaders from that point. Even if we don't have the expertise, we do know people who do, and we'll get you in touch with them and save you the effort of having to figure it out on your own. So, that's how we engage in all of our communities, as Bill said, as well as community service work. But just in general, you don't stay in business for a half a century by, holding on to information. You try to share it as best we possibly can. So thanks for the opportunity today, Doug. Very appreciated.
Well, thank you both, gentlemen. Absolutely. Thank you for coming on, and thanks everybody for listening in. And the video recording for this should be ready in about 24 hours, and I will send that out to everyone and post it on social media as well. Thanks a lot, guys.
Stay safe, everybody.
Thanks, Doug.
Take care.